Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show. Well, here we are for episode 2 of Starz' new series Outlander, where Claire, the nurse from 1945, found herself inexplicably back in 1743, and she's currently in the company of some rough and hairy Highlanders. After arriving at Castle Leoch, the name of the episode, yeah, it's the same one from the Monty Python film, she met Mrs. Fitz, who's one of the farting aliens from Doctor Who, and she's the woman who pretty much runs the castle. You know the type, big, dowdy woman, gets it done. Anyway, after persuading her that she knows some kind of healing tricks, Mrs. Fitz and Claire manage to persuade Jamie to take his top off again, and so Claire can foot her around with his muscles. But they both get a little loose-tongued, misty-eyed about their sad pasts, him over the assault of his sister, and the mincing of his back by Black Jack Randall, and her over the fact that her husband, the great-great-great-great-great-grandson of Black Randall, is gone. He's not dead. She says he's dead, but he's just gone, because he hasn't been born yet. But the episode's not all just people making moon eyes and heaving chests. Claire ends up getting introduced to Colin Mackenzie. He's the crippled laird of the castle. He's also the older brother of Dougal, the one from The Hobbit. But he's a witty and sharp guy, but he seems nice enough. He offers to let Claire ride off in a wee tinker's wagon, which apparently isn't a euphemism. In the meantime, Claire gets invited to a fancy castle dinner as a guest. She gets to meet a bunch of people, and she drinks. And drinks. And drinks some more. Then ends up making an arse of herself, and then she staggers off to bed, suddenly realising that they got her drunk on purpose to find out who she is. Luckily, the next day Claire doesn't seem to have anything to do, so she ends up hanging out with a bunch of gingers. Jamie, his horse, and Gellis. She's a sneaky little wifey who just turns up in the middle of a field, and apparently might just be a witch. Still, she seems nice enough, obviously has something up her sleeve, but she hangs around, and they end up both going to watch Colm doing his bit as the laird in the middle of the big hall. He's sorting out some local disputes, all happening in Gaelic, so nobody has a clue what's going on. It's lucky that Gellis is there to translate. And everything seems to be going fine until a wee lassie gets dragged up to get a beating. But guess who steps up to defend her honour? It's Jamie! But let's face it, we all saw that coming. We saw it coming a mile away. Anyway, Big Jim allows himself to get heroically beaten up, and Dougal makes sure it goes on a little bit too long, which makes everyone a wee bit uncomfortable. But it's good because it means that Jamie and Claire get to have their third little heart-to-heart in the episode, and it's pretty clear that she's getting the glad eyes over wee Jamie. Maybe it's because, they're falling in love, yeah? Or, it could just be Stockholm Syndrome. Could be. But it's okay, because Claire's going to be off with a tinker the next day. Only no, she isn't, because the brothers of Mackenzie pull a fast one. They give her a wee apothecary room to nurse from and tell her she's stuck there till she can be trusted and she's not leaving the castle any time soon. So, what did I think about tonight's episode? Well, let's start off with the good. It was great seeing Claire come into the castle, starting to really get her feel for things, meeting some folk, Mrs. Fitz, meeting Colm. Colm's awesome. Absolutely sterling work there by Gary Lewis. He's a Scottish actor, by the way. You've probably seen him in loads of other things, but generally he has quite short hair. It was also nice to see the way that the castle works, getting to see people like Old Alec out in the stables, and also seeing that there's a nicer side to people like Dougal. I mean, see him playing away with wee Hamish there, who of course, he's the one that Claire originally thinks is his son, and of course it turns out it's actually Colm's son, but Colm's a weird cripple, so maybe there's something going on there. It's also interesting to see that although Claire really, knows her stuff, she's got a little bit of future knowledge. She still isn't adverse to really getting manipulated a little. The two brothers, Mackenzie, Colm and Dougal, they're not stupid. They managed to get her drunk, managed to almost wheedle some information out of her, and of course at the end, they let her think that she's getting away, and then turn around and sting her at the last minute and say, no, you're going to stay here, and you're going to look after people and do all medicine stuff for them. All of which is pretty fantastic. And then, of course, you've got Claire herself, being sneaky, sorting things out. But then she's also having a little bit of a chat and a laugh with Jamie. She's chatting with Gellis. And, Gellis is awesome. But then Jamie doesn't do an awful lot in this episode. He goes and gets himself beaten up. And other than that, he spends a lot of time sitting talking with Claire. She manages to, sit down and chat with him at least 3 times. That was one of my complaints about the episode. Because, there's maybe a bit too much of that. It does feel like every now and again we're suddenly slowing down, sitting down and having a chat between Jamie and Claire. Now, I know a lot of people will say, yeah, but that's the point of the story, Ian. What are you talking about? And I'm saying, well, the problem is, this isn't just a show for people who love the books. This is a show for everybody. They want everybody to see this. And I'd love people to watch this who aren't fans of the books. And I worry that they're going to watch this and think, I'm getting a bit bored. I'm getting a bit bored looking at these two people sitting there looking gaga at each other. Now, it's fine. It's all right. And if your primary reason for watching the show is to see that, great. But if you're not a Moonlighting fan and you didn't really care about Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis getting together, you wouldn't have watched the show. And it's kind of the same with Outlander. If you don't care about Jamie and Claire, there's not really much here for you. I mean, there's a lot of little intrigue and history and stuff, but ultimately, you're probably in the long run going to find it a bit boring. Which is why I love it, because I do like the fact that they're getting together. I think they're a lovely couple. I think the show's brilliant in that way, and that's why I'm going to keep watching. So that's really my thoughts for this week. So until next week, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions.